President Trump has marked his first 100 days in office, so what are the highlights from his historic second term? I'm Veronica Dudo. Let's find out.
This is In America Today from the Ticker News Studios in New York City.
President Donald Trump is calling the first 100 days of his second term the most successful in American history. Speaking at a high-energy rally in Michigan, the president touted sweeping actions on trade, immigration, and government reform. He pointed to a flurry of executive orders that have reshaped federal policy across key sectors, including education, technology, and civil rights. While supporters cheered for the pace of change, critics are already raising questions about the long-term impact of President Trump's aggressive agenda. Here's some of what the president had to say at his rally.
You finally have a president who is defending our borders and our nation. After decades of politicians who destroyed Detroit to build up Beijing, you finally have a champion for workers in the White House. And instead of putting China first, I'm putting Michigan first, and I'm putting America first. After a lifetime of unelected bureaucrats stealing your paychecks, attacking your values, and trampling your freedoms, we are stopping their gravy train, ending their power trip, and telling thousands of corrupt, incompetent, and unnecessary deep state bureaucrats, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. You're fired.
For more, I'm joined by Keith Nahigian, the president of Nahigian Strategies. Welcome.
Great to be here.
So how do President Trump's first 100 days of his second term compare to those of other presidents?
It's been the biggest whirlwind ever. Most people come in and start slow. They have to get their cabinet approved. It takes them a while to get geared up. But this president, because he's already been president and he had 4 years to practice what he wanted to do and put plans together, the pace has been absolutely incredible. And how much they've been doing, which normally would be years down the road on a normal administration, has been in just the first 100 days.
There are so many different sectors and industries that are really feeling a lot of the policy that this administration has enacted. What are some of the executive actions or just policy shifts that you point to as some highlights?
Well, when you look back at the election, I think both sides of the aisle, the independents, wanted to send a missile into Washington and send a disruptor in to change how business as usual was happening. So from a standpoint of messaging, I think that has been accomplished. The other areas that were in the election were obviously the border was a major issue driving things, and then inflation. The border has had quite a bit of success in shutting that off completely. We were told that needed to be done by Congress, and they've done a lot of it through executive orders. That also was one of the leaders of crime and some of the fentanyl and other things that are disrupting local communities. The next area is the economy, and they're trying to basically privatize the economy and de-government drive the economy. So that's going to take a little bit longer. There's going to be the tax bill that they're going to kick in. Both the House and the Senate have gone over all the hurdles they need, and they're going to start basically a 6 to 8 week really accelerated plan to put in place the economic agenda of the president and make sure the tax cuts are permanent. And then things you heard during the election, things like tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, other things. And that'll add a calm to the market. And I think the market will really take off come July 4th. Also, these tariff deals were to get leverage, and the leverage was to renegotiate a lot of the international trade scene all over the country. You normally do that with one country at a time. They're doing it with 70 countries at the same time. I think a lot of those deals are going to start falling and putting into place here in the next 24 to 48 hours. And once that happens, it's going to calm the market because they're going to see certainty going forward. I would say by Memorial Day will be a major hurdle of certainty. And then I think July 4th is the one to really watch of everything will be in place to go.
Now, critics argue that President Trump's rapid use of executive power sidesteps Congress. Do you see a risk in this strategy?
A little bit. I mean, tariffs are normally done by Congress. They can be done if there's certain areas of the executive branch wanted to act on. One universal tariffs going across is something that I think they're giving them a little bit of leeway to quickly fix. But some of the stuff is going to have to be through Congress. And also you've seen on some of these areas kind of a lawfare approach of the judicial branch getting involved in executive power. So there's going to be challenges that go all the way to Supreme Court, all the way to Congress, and they'll straighten it out. But there is definitely a checks and balances that no branch of government can exceed where they're supposed to be.
How have President Trump's policies affected federal agencies in Washington in terms of staffing and spending? Of course, very notably thinking about DOJ and their efforts.
Well, when looking at the government, it isn't run obviously very efficiently, but the Biden administration hired a lot of people over the last like 24 months. So a lot of the cuts you hear are just going back to the 2020 levels. So I don't know if they've done the best job of messaging that, and I think the DOJ group wasn't necessarily messaging some of these things, but I think just making government more efficient. They're trying to go in and say, if you're starting the government today, is this the most efficient way to serve the people? And I think they're going to have some good answers and messaging of why that's more efficient. There's obviously a lot of technology and things, but some of the kind of the bureaucratic ways of doing things, we're just adding process to make it more challenging for consumers. So I think they're looking for kind of an Apple App Store, very frictionless interaction so that when people are dealing with the government, it's very quick, very easy, very convenient. And that's what they're trying to do. And that takes a little bit of time. Obviously, you can't do that in 100 days.
Now, during the Biden administration, of course, we did see those daily White House press briefings, but it is very different. Of course, there is energy for a new administration, but we are seeing the president hosting a lot of business leaders, also foreign leaders, constantly that transparency, also with the cabinet meetings. How are international allies and adversaries reacting to President Trump's second term and his initiatives, and also just from his communication standpoint?
It's been a complete reset, not only in Washington, but I think around the world. We've had foreign leaders all getting on planes and coming here to Washington because they realize there's a different kind of sheriff in town. I do think the Biden administration was very insular of how it was communicating, and there's been a lot of books written in the last couple of weeks that he was a little bit in decline and the energy level and the leadership wasn't necessarily there. This is a completely different operation. As you saw, there are multiple press conferences today. The transparency is incredible. The media cycle's a challenge to keep up with. You don't watch television or you don't keep track of on the internet for, 1 hour, you're behind on seeing things. That's all healthy. The more people know, the better. I do think the media has to adjust here. But the problem with that is you don't have a chance to really drive a singular message for a long time to explain things to people because you have to jump to the next subject. So I do think that's a little bit of a long-term burning in process that hopefully will be better when maybe it slows down a little bit and they can really stop and explain and have some more filler into why this matters to people. But the first 100 days has been just an incredible pace. Internationally, like I said, I think you're going to see a lot of trade agreements, realignment of peace in different areas. Ukraine, there wasn't any talk of peace before that. I think there was problems, obviously, in the Middle East. There's problems in our hemisphere. There's problems in Southeast Asia. I think you're going to see kind of a realignment and focus on a big priority is peace. I do think when they do polling on subjects, that a lot of it has come out over the 100 days. One area that they haven't necessarily polled is leadership. And I think that's the area that really holds the president up in a lot of these polls is because he is leading on a lot of these subjects. So whether you agree or disagree with them, at least they like to see American leading in these areas.
Keith Nahigian, thank you so much for your reflections and insight on the president's first 100 days.
It's great to be here.
This is Ticker. We'll be right back.